All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bookers Alliance podcast. This is a new podcast with a wrestling format, a wrestling topic, and we are just shooting the shit, as they say. And as we're going along, this is our first foray into this world of podcasting, and obviously, with everything going on in the world right now as far as wrestling, we could not wait any longer. We had to go forward and record our inaugural podcast. So, as we go through, you are listening currently to Marky Mark, and my compadre across the table from me is...
That's Frank Donaldson coming at you right here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, as we are going into this topic, please keep in mind we are youngins in this business, as they say. Nothing is set in stone. All that we are doing is attempting to catch your ear with some latest news and gossip and around the wrestling entities and giving you our thoughts. So as we start this off, we want to talk about the hot topic of the WWE. The landscape that is shifting, changing, don't know what's happening from minute to minute, second to second, body slam to body slam. Nobody knows at this point. We have no clue what's going on. But here are our thoughts. Frank, what do you got going on today?
Well, as we are looking over here at the wrestling walls, wrestling boards and whatnot, everybody's talking about the WWE sale, the possible sale of the WWE. Vince McMahon's return to the company, Stephanie McMahon's resignment from the company, and this possible sale to rumored sources such as Saudi Arabia, Disney, Comcast. All the different entities that are available to buy the company are out there, so we just wanted to get our thoughts on record now. So that way, whatever happens, whenever happens, we got something that we can refer back to just to see how close our ideas were. How successful our podcast is going to be based on that.
All right. So let's start out with the hot topic of the moment. Obviously, the other night, Twitter world went up in a blaze talking about how in the world could the WWE have pulled the trigger to sell to the Saudi Arabia. Now, don't know what everybody's thoughts are on this. We're just going to share our thoughts and ideas. Personally, I think it's a hot take. I don't know if that's a wise move for the company. I don't know what's going to happen because of it, but I don't know. I was a little taken aback. How about you, Frank?
So, first and foremost, let us first be clear that there's nothing official. We don't have any kind of insider knowledge or anything. As far as us and the rest of the world is concerned, nothing's official. There has been no sale. Even if there was a sale, from what I'm led to believe, this process is going to be a long, drawn-out process full of contracts and negotiations and things like that. So even if they may have agreed to terms of a sale, there's no way that the company's been sold or being sold in the foreseeable future. So let's get that out of the way first, so make sure we're not spreading false rumors or anything like that here, just conversation. But I don't know. My take on it is it all depends on how whoever the buyer would be is going to be associated to the company. If they're just coming in as a financial backer, if Saudi Arabia is just going to be a financial backer, hey, no big deal. No harm, no foul. Take the company private. Vince doesn't have to answer to anybody else. He can go out and pay off whoever he needs to pay off. Nobody cares. All well and good. But if they're going to come in and exert some kind of control over the company and then we start seeing changes, I think that's where you're going to start to see a lot of people take a different look at the WWE as a whole.
Definitely. I know when I first heard the news, it kind of stuck with me for a moment. I was like, I don't know, what's going on? What are they thinking? Is that the right move for them? But then at the same time, it's their company. I mean, if they choose to sell that company, who are we as the fan, the community here to say, no, you shouldn't sell to them? It's their company. But at the end of the day, I think they always have to look out for the interest of their talent. They have to look at the interest of people working within the office and where do they stand on it, I do, I monitor some of the other Twitter chats that are going around, the other communities, the inside sources, things like that. We listen and we hear their opinions, and to hear their opinions, everybody was like, oh, well, if they're doing that, I'm done. I'm not reporting on the WWE anymore. I'm washing my hands clean. And I got a hot take on that one because as a lifelong wrestling fan, I don't know it's that easy to wash your hands clean of a company. I mean,
Yeah.
been with it since was a kid, so how do you say I'm done with it? Plus, coupled with the fact I've not had any problem sitting on my couch watching the shows that came from there, and neither did they, as they reported on them.
Absolutely. Then they haven't had any complaints to it. The first couple shows, the work may not have been up to par, so to speak, as
True.
far as what we come to
Very
expect
true.
for a big show. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, they're paying a lot of money for those shows, and WWE they were sending the talent that the Saudi government was requesting. So hey, they were getting what they were paying for, so to speak. But you know, everybody out there can say whatever they want about, you know, my priorities here, my morals there. When those checks start rolling in with that many commas and that many your perspective starts to shift a little bit. So for those of us in the normal people's world out here listening to the podcast, we may look at one thing one way, but just keep in mind those people are looking at a lot bigger numbers out there that they're dealing
Very
with,
true.
and they got a lot of different horses in the race to be worried about other than we just don't like it or we're not all about it. But speaking of what you led to there about what some of the talent, some of the fans, some of the sportscasters were saying, that's something that we're going to get here too. There's a lot of talent that are saying that they won't work for a company that is affiliated with the Saudi government. I mean, case in point, let's think about Sami Zayn. There's no
Right.
way of Syrian
Right.
descent. He couldn't work. He couldn't work there under them. MVP,
Right.
MVP
Religious.
because
The
of
religious
because of
reasons.
his renunciation of
Right.
Islam. There's, I mean, in Saudi Arabia, he would be hunted. So,
Right.
you know, there's no way I don't think he could find himself affiliated with it. Plus, there's a lot of other superstars, John Cena, Kevin Owens. There's a lot of other superstars that never did go over to the Saudi shows just because of their personal beliefs and what they did or didn't agree with. So, doing something like that, you alienate a lot of the company or a lot of the fans. But at the end of the day, if you're a fan of the company, you know, unless they start running shows in Saudi or, you know, they're moving the talent to Saudi, are you really going to see the inner workings of the business part of that? So I know we listened to, or at least I listened to Eric Bischoff's 83 Weeks episode, and I know everybody's not a fan of Eric, but I listened to it. And one of the things he talks about is being a fan of the wrestling business or being a fan of the business of wrestling. There's a difference. So the wrestling business is what we see on our TVs every week, what we watch on our live events, the network, all that stuff. That's the wrestling business, and there's a lot of interest in the wrestling business, but the business of wrestling is a lot different. So saying that I'm a fan of the wrestling business is one thing. Saying I completely understand the business of wrestling is something completely different, and not a lot of people A, listening to this podcast, or B, commenting on all these inner workings really understand that.
Good points. Good points. And just on the topic of the talent, when you look at the talent and their decision to work for a company based on that potential sale, I don't necessarily hold it against the talent. The talent are they're able to make their own decisions, and I would never look at somebody and go, oh, I hate them. The fact that they left the WWE because of that. At the end of the day, I'm a fan of them and what they're doing, and you have to respect their personal decisions. But I just at the end of the day, you want to see the company succeed and the talent succeed at the same time. It's got to be a symbiotic relationship between the two. And as a WWE, how do they handle that if the Saudi purchase is real and it goes through? How do they handle that? They got to walk those lines with a delicate balance. And also, I would hope they would look at their talent and go, "You're not going to be penalized if you decide to leave." They obviously there's going to be some non-compete clauses. That's with every contract. But if somebody had like 2-3 years sitting on the contract and they decided to walk out because of that, I would hope the WWE would not hold that against them and say, "Hey, you got to sit at home and wait out your contract."
Well, no, the idea is good, but again, keep in mind if the Saudi government buys or the Saudi private investment company buys the WWE, that may not be the WWE's call anymore.
Very
Because at
true.
that point, the Saudi team may say, we're not going to let you out. The Saudi team may completely change things. Or the Saudi team may come in and not touch anything. They may literally just come in and say, we just want some revenue off of this. We're going to take it private and we're going to make some revenue off of it.
Or they may come in and try to raise Yokozuna from the dead. You don't know.
So I do remember the first Saudi show. They did try to get a lot of wrestlers that were no longer with us. That
Correct.
On that card. But at the end of the day, as far as that goes, the whole Saudi thing, talent's going to say what they feel emotionally right now, but they also have families to feed. They got lives to live. They got, careers to manage, things like that. From what my understanding is, the Saudi government has $600 billion or so in their fund that, that they manage or whatnot. If they come in and start writing a lot bigger checks than Vince McMahon can write right now, those talent are going to make some changes to their way of thinking.
Absolutely.
Because, wrestling isn't like sports. They're not managed by you can only pay a certain amount of money. There is no salary cap in wrestling. So
right.
If the Saudi government says, oh, John Cena doesn't want to wrestle for us anymore, what if we offer him $10 million a match? You're telling me John Cena's those morals are going to just say, there's no way I'll go out? Come on now. You're going to have to start thinking about it. Shawn Michaels once said he would never come out of retirement until they threw a lot of money at him in Saudi, and he went over there and had a stinker of a match. But
Shawn came out of retirement for that match, but his hair didn't. So
no. Well, he took John Cena's hair with him, as we John Cena's hair was looking like he had a LeBron James, Kevin Durant type thing going on here the last time. But
very true.
But so the Saudi thing, that's the biggest elephant in the room right now because it's the most controversial. But just thinking in the line of what happened over this last, I don't know, what was a week to 10 days. Where we started, first Vince put out a presser saying he wanted back to the company. He heard he got bad advice or whatever. And from what my understanding of the reports is that the board voted unanimously to keep him out. Supposedly the board voted that against it. They didn't want him back in. From what I heard today, they even said that there may be other information that they were kind of sitting on, keeping under wraps. And if he comes back, that information may find its way out. I don't know what kind of power play that was, but so that's where we started. And thinking about it, when that happened, that's when Stephanie McMahon was still on the board.
True.
Now, as it was discussed today, they were saying, Stephanie was on the board. Paul, Triple H was on the board. Nick Khan was on the board. One or two things happened in this situation here. Either because it was a unanimous vote, either they voted with the board to keep Vince out, or they abstained and didn't vote at all. Conflict of interest. They may have said, hey, you know what? I don't want no parts of it because it won't be fair.
That's a good point. Never thought of that.
Yeah, so if they vote for him, then it's like, okay, they're just kissing their daddies, but, because he's, at the end of the day, he's still main shareholder. He still had a say regardless of what you do with it. Exactly. So, they may have abstained from the vote completely and said, we'll excuse ourselves from the room. Or they may have voted against it, and that could be why Steph's no longer chairwoman of WWE. We're not going to know that. The only people that are ever going to know that were in that room at the time, and some of those people that were in the room at the time are no longer with the company because
True.
Right after Vince got reinstated into chairman of the board seat, 3 board members were no longer part of that board.
True.
And then Vince was part of the board, bringing in 2 of his people that he had with him before, who left kind of when Nick Khan started rising up the ranks. The more notoriety that he got. I don't know their names. I know Michelle Barrios is one of them. I don't know the other one's name off the top of my head, and I don't want to misspeak it. But I know Vince brought them back in. So him and those 2 came in and took those 3 board seats of the 3 board members that he fired as chairman of the board.
Right.
So
that the board thing is something that I actually, I knew that they were a publicly traded company and they had a board of directors, but I never, as a wrestling fan, I care about what's coming across my TV versus, who's on their board of directors. But looking into that, I didn't know that a lot of the people that were on some big time companies,
Yeah.
So to see how much investment they were getting from their board of directors, so let's talk a little bit about Stephanie resigning. One of the things that I immediately thought about when she resigned. I was like, oh man, she's the one who leaked everything, and damn, Vince done kicked her out. That was the first thing I thought.
Oh no!
And I was like, oh man,
no.
she gonna be disowned from the family and everything.
Oh no! I did not think about that.
But in reality, a few months before all of this investigation started with Vince and everything else, she went on a leave of absence. And, judging by everything that their family went through, obviously with Triple H and his, cardiac event, I can only imagine as a parent what she was going through with 3 kids and then her husband being in the hospital, pulling all this duty at work. I can see where she wanted to out to try to get things back to normal for her personal household. And then again, though, as she stated on many occasions, first and foremost of this business, she's a fan. Mm-hmm. So she cares a lot about this business. This business is her life. It's been with her since day one.
Yeah,
literally. So to know that, as soon as Vince was, retired, quote unquote, she was pushed to that forefront of chairwoman. I think she got robbed of that leave she was trying to take. But obviously, whereas she's got 3 kids, this is kind of her kid too. I mean, she's a part of it. So she had to step in and take care of it. And then everything else that could happen, truth or no truth, what we don't know. But was she strong-armed out? Was she pushed out? If they did sell to Saudi, was she pushed out because she was a woman being in a chair position? Makes it
more attractive to the Saudi company to have a male CEO and a male chairman than it would to have a female that they may not want to deal with on a business basis.
So, to hear her say that she's not only just taking a leave of absence again, but she is full on out resigning, that's a different word altogether. That means she's done. Yeah, she's done. Washed her hands clean. Yep. She's going home. She's still a fan, as she said in her, note that she wrote out and got published everywhere. But at the end of the day, man, the fact that she's not there, that doesn't sit well with me as a fan. I've always liked her on-air persona. I've always liked her off-air persona. And anything that I've seen off the air, of course, who knows what you're like behind closed doors. But everything that I've seen as far as Stephanie, she was good for the business. And then you hear all the rumors about the talent, hating the fact that she's gone now from the business. She was well liked amongst the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at it now to say that at one point in time we had Vince, Linda, Shane, and Steph involved with the company, and now we have just Vince at 77 years old is kind of, I don't know.
Is that Vince's own choosing, though?
So, and that's where I wanted to go with that. Just that part there. When Vince first said he wanted back in, again, we know the board of directors voted against it. We don't know what that means, but we know it happened. Stephanie put out a letter when Vince got reinstated, saying, that, it happened, and, as far as she knows, things are going to be business as usual. Vince put out a statement, said the same thing. He reiterated throughout the letter repeatedly, everything's going to stay the same, par for the course, stay the course. Stephanie and Triple H and Nick Khan have been doing such a good job. We're not going to change anything. We're not going to do it. That letter came out the day before Stephanie, quote unquote, resigned. That's awful interesting how he would put out that statement on, I don't know, let's call it Monday, that everything was going to stay the course. And then in a 24-hour turnaround, Steph's out, and then we're talking sale. That, I don't know about that. I don't get me wrong. Everybody's saying the right things. They're all, every statement that's putting out, Stephanie's saying the right things. She's always going to be a fan, blah, blah, blah. Vince is saying the right things. Everybody's doing a great job. I'm in full support of the current regime, blah, blah, blah. But then all of it blows up in 24 hours.
Right.
That, to me, leaves a lot of unanswered questions of what happened in that 24 hours to either give her the comfort of being able to say, hey, the company's in great hands, I'm okay to step away, or gave her the resolve to say, I have to get out right now. Because Before, when she took her leave of absence, 8 months ago, when she took her leave of absence, 2 months later, this whole Vince scandal broke, and I thought that was awful convenient as well.
Very
She
true.
took a leave of absence, got her name away from the company, completely removed from the company before quote unquote the shit hit the fan.
Right.
Then as soon as the shit hit the fan, she swoops right back into the top position to save the company, rescue the company. Now Vince comes back. It's been 6 months. The smoke is kind of cleared. The fire's died down. Vince feels it's okay to come back, and as soon as his name starts getting associated with the company again, she's completely out.
Right.
That to me is saying a little more than okay, it's all puppy dogs and rainbows.
He shouldn't have tried to put her on that cross, man. That's what it all comes down to.
Well, maybe we need Austin to run back in and save it right now.
Save her.
I mean, my goodness.
So, being the fact that we are the Bookers Alliance, that is our deal. We are here to quote unquote book or fantasy book or whatever you want to call it. Think about this for a minute, though, Frank. Think about Vince McMahon was away for how long?
8 months.
8 months. He was away for 8 months.
6 months. 6 months. 6 months.
6 months. Okay. So let's think about this in Booker's terms. Let's think about the Vince McMahon character. What do you think he was doing for that 6 months? You think he was plotting and scheming and he already had all of this kind of built up and, what do you think?
Every day.
Every day.
No, I mean, as much as we've followed Vince McMahon, as much as has been written about him, said about him, whatever, nothing has led me to the thought that he went on some beach somewhere and, grabbed a Mai Tai and put his feet up and was drinking out of a coconut. Shit. None of that says to me Vince McMahon. If everything I've heard about Vince McMahon since I can remember the name Vince McMahon has said workhorse to the end, meaning he's
Right.
24/7.
The dude's working out at 3 a.m. in his 70s.
Yeah, and then he's at work in the meeting at 5. He got maybe an hour of sleep and all of that. That's the kind
Right.
of Vince McMahon that I've always heard about. Work ethic out of this world. No, not to be matched by many on the planet. But
Right.
so to think that he took those 8 months and just or 6 months and just said I'm done with it. I washed my hands of the whole thing. Couldn't believe that for 1 second. Not at all.
Right.
He
was in the Booker's room all day, every day,
I
figuring
think
this out.
every day, every minute of every day, WWE was on his mind and what the next step was. And once the time was right, I mean, as soon as Christmas came, it's like they got together for Christmas dinner and shit hit the fan again. It seems like as soon as Christmas was over, all the Yuletide and all the holiday joy was gone. Vince was right back to business.
I can imagine Vince right now writing down on that legal pad all his ideas and just chuckling and going, "That's good shit."
So that's another part of the conversation that I wanted to get to here is Vince's return. What does that mean per se as far as everything? Do we really think Vince is coming back full force, like as in creative, as in at Raw and SmackDown every week, as in physical presence right there, or do we really just think what he said is true and that he's just coming back to kind of
broker the sale.
facilitate this deal?
As a fan, I'm hoping that it is not for creative. Obviously, when the Triple H era began for creative, storylines changed. You started seeing the production change. You started seeing the momentum turn as far as the 3-hour Raw was actually watchable again instead of trying to suffer through all 3 hours
Yeah,
of
people
Raw.
watch because the ratings went up.
Right. So as a fan, I'm hoping that it is not to pick back up that pencil and be the control, and creative. Now, knowing Vince McMahon, he's God according to him and WWE. That's his creation.
And JBL.
Right. So how in the world can Vince McMahon that we know step away if he's this close? I don't think it's possible.
I don't know. Well, I know we saw a Vince Project and Jinder Mahal come back on NXT this Tuesday.
Ouch.
Yep.
Ouch.
And I was like, well, there's a Vince guy, and that was as soon as I saw him come out, and I said, oh Lord, not this again. But I mean, not no shade to Jinder. I mean, Jinder looks
True.
great. Jinder's
True.
former WWE world champion. For God's sakes, that man's a stud. But my goodness, when I saw him come out there on NXT, tears started coming down my eyes. I said, I thought we had passed that era. I thought we had moved
Right.
on, but again, let's be honest. So let's be fair to talent. I mean, and we're not getting into a talent conversation, but to be
Right.
fair to talent, I mean, Jinder has been on the main roster. He is a former world champion. He brings credibility to the NXT brand, and if he can get some guys over down there in NXT, hey, more power to him.
Right.
Great move, good
Right.
idea. But when I heard that music and I saw that dude come out there, I said, "Oh Lord!" But I'm with you on that. I hope that Vince is true to his word. I hope he's gonna come back and facilitate whatever deal, and that makes sense. 100% makes sense. First, he's main shareholder in the company, he's majority shareholder in the company for one, and for two, nobody is WWE more than Vince McMahon. He's the
Right.
face of the company for good, for bad, or indifferent. He is the face of the company. And anybody who's going to start talking in the billions of dollars to deal with WWE, they're going to want that Vince McMahon endorsement. They're going to want to know that this is what the creator and the founder and everything that comes with it is supporting and will be in full force of for however long he has to get involved with. So it makes 100% sense to me that any potential suitors out there would want to know that there's a Vince McMahon in their corner.
Right.
I get all that, but I think what's going on with the creative, I think what's going on with the TV shows, with the premium live events, with the house shows, I think all that's going in the right direction right now. WWE had gotten so stale for so long.
Very true.
And so many people were lifelong fans like us were down on the business and the product just as it was because it wasn't appealing to us anymore. And I mean, I've been through all the changes of WWE from '86 to today. I've seen every change they've put out there, and I've been for some, I've not been for some. And I'll be honest, the last year I was not for some of what I was seeing on TV. Again, we're not talking talent, we're not talking TV shows, just putting it out there. The business as a whole was on a downswing, and most, if not all of that, was attributed to Vince's creative. It just wasn't appealing to me anymore. And I'm middle-aged wrestling fan. So just for me, if it's not appealing to me, who's a 30-plus year fan of the business, I can't see where it's appealing to a 2 or 3 year fan, casual fan,
Absolutely.
a younger fan. I couldn't see where it was appealing to any of them either. So
Absolutely. I think, as far as the creative goes, I think I hope he stays away. If he brokers the sale and goes back into retirement, okay, totally get that. That's all well and good. My thing, though, is if you take it back, if you do sell to a private investment fund, is he selling to somebody who is going to keep him around?
Well,
That's where I think his bread is buttered. I think his interest, unfortunately, is self-interest in this coming back. I don't think he's here just to broker a sale. I think he's here because, as we have all said before, he is going to die running this business. He's not leaving. I don't think, and even though all of this stuff happened with the allegations and everything else, he even said himself he should have just laid low and let it blow over. So, I mean, his belief is none of that really matters. Now, granted, that's a different story. That's a different topic.
that's a different podcast.
Podcast altogether. But I don't believe this will be the end of McMahon. I think he's here. He's here to stay. And unfortunately, I don't think he goes back into retirement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and let's be honest, that's totally up to his discretion at this point. No matter what, as long as he controls majority stock of that company, nobody can force him out. They can suggest, they can defer. I mean, you see so his quote-unquote board of directors, and you said it earlier, the board of directors is only affiliated in this company because it's publicly traded.
Right.
If this sale goes through, it will probably more than likely end up privately owned.
Correct.
Which means at that point, there is no more board of directors. There is no more checks and balances. There is no more, I have to answer for anything. If he doesn't break federal law, such as like the steroid trial back in the early 90s, if he doesn't get involved in something like that, there is no boundary anymore. At that point, it's his to do with what he chooses. And I don't believe any company, be it Disney, Comcast, Saudi, any other company, I don't believe any one of them would come in and say, you know what, we're going to take everything that WWE and make it something different. Nobody's
Right.
going to change what's working so well. They are far and away the number one organization in this wrestling business, and they will be for the long foreseeable future. AEW is what it is, but they are a distant second. We talk about the big two. I don't believe in the big two just yet. Out. That's another podcast for another day.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
I see AEW a shade above Impact, but eons behind WWE as far as
You got 40 years, 40 years of
to
business.
40 years.
Yeah.
Impact's got 20 years of business now.
Right.
AEW's got 4.
Right.
AEW is the shiny new toy that everybody loves to play with on Christmas morning. And don't get me wrong, they're hanging. It's not like it's not like they were a shot in the dark or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, they got strong backing. They real strong financial backing. Tony Khan's dad is worth $11 billion himself, so it's not like they're running out of money.
Does he purchase the WWE?
So that's an interesting thought, but from what I was hearing earlier, they're saying that whoever decides to buy this, is more than likely going to end up having to put up billions of dollars. And
so that might not be the correct investment for his portfolio.
So
maybe a competing interest since he already has AEW.
So knowing Tony Khan's a fan like we are, he's got 20, 30, whatever years under his belt too. We know he's been a fan at least since the Attitude Era based on his TV show. Because we see a lot of the Attitude Era in it and the story.
A lot of the champagne truck.
Absolutely. And we see the storylines played out through it. So we know he was a fan then. So in the thought of that, would I see Tony Khan buying it to do the what Vince McMahon did to WCW?
WCW.
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely.
If it was in his realm of possibility, I definitely see him doing that just for that same.
And then Cody screws Tony in the end and goes, "It says McMahon."
There you go. Now, 100% I see that happen. But because again, it's not Tony's money.
Right.
It's family money.
Right.
But Tony's father made that money. Do I see Tony's father, who's worth $11 billion, do I see him ponying up half of that on his own just for WWE? Absolutely not.
So
no way. They've got the Jaguars. They've got a football team in England somewhere.
Yep.
There's no way that they're going to shank half of their wealth on Tony's pet project, especially when they already have AEW. That would be counterproductive.
Right.
Again, if they had Saudi money, $600 billion, absolutely, 100%.
So if not the Khans, let's look at the other suitors that could be out there trying to purchase the WWE. We've heard Comcast, we've heard Netflix, we've heard Amazon, Apple, Disney. Where do I see this fitting if it decides to go to a company like that? Obviously, the first choice is, the Comcast family, I think. I mean, if you look at where, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that USA, NBC is Comcast family. Is that correct?
NBC Universal, I'm not sure.
Not sure if it could be, but I mean, where it sits, where the WWE network lives and on the USA network, I know that's all correlated. So I could see that being the place that it lands. Obviously, you could see it going with Disney, as in Disney already owns ESPN. ESPN's the natural sports connection. And over the years, ESPN has started reporting on the WWE more as a sport. Yeah. So especially with, that started with Coach back in the day, Jonathan Coachman coming in.
They traded some talent back and forth.
Right. So I think you could see it land on ESPN. It'd be perfect for ESPN Plus. The only downfall of that I see is all their ties with UFC. So you could have, combat sport versus combat sport trying to correlate, what event happens on one night, because obviously you're not going to push two events on the same night.
True.
So
there's definitely that. There's one other downfall, though, if it were to go to Disney, especially with ESPN, it made me remember it when you said it. So the current model for ESPN Plus is you pay a subscription to have it, but whenever a pay-per-view or a quote-unquote
Yes,
a premium
sir.
live event comes up, you have to pay again. I don't know if the WWE fan at this point, after having the Peacock network for as long as we've had and not having to pay a separate fee for pay-per-views, I don't know if the WWE fan is going to be okay with saying, well, I'll still pay $5 a month for Peacock and pay $50 or $60 a month for the pay-per-views when we haven't had to do that since, 2014?
Yeah, long
So
time.
I don't
Almost 10
know
years.
if ESPN would be the right avenue for it. I don't know what the Peacock deal is. They may be
Well,
tied into Peacock for longer than they would have to even negotiate that.
when Peacock purchased it, I know a lot of the standing kind of business rules, kind of they kept it all the same. I do know that it's been reported, again, we're amateurs, guys, so if we don't have the correct sources or if, something we say may not be correct, hey, forgive us, man. Come on.
Yeah,
One
we're
love.
getting this information just like some of you are getting it. I mean, we're picking and choosing pieces of it here that we want to talk about that are interesting.
Right. But, I've heard, and read reports that Vince McMahon himself wasn't even keen on giving the pay-per-views or premium live events away for free. That wasn't he didn't want that. He still wanted people to pay for the events, but it was the deal that was struck for the WWE network that included them in, as they wanted that as a bargaining chip for people to subscribe. So, if he's back in control, does he take that business model and go back to charging for pay-per-views? I mean, that
As a
could
private
happen.
company, he would definitely have the right and wherewithal to do it because there would be, again, no checks and balances to keep him from doing it. So
Right.
that's always out there. But let me tell you guys out there, I am not looking forward to paying $50 to $60.
No, absolutely
for a
not.
pay-per-view after that. So at that point, I'd be seeing some of you guys at some local sports bars or some Buffalo Wild Wings or places along that line of business. Buffalo Wild Wings, we are taking endorsements. Yes,
Oh,
yes.
absolutely. I love
But-
I love your gem and jalapeno sauce.
Absolutely, absolutely, and buy one get one wings.
Oh, dude,
Tuesday night.
Oh, dude.
every Tuesday. If we had to record Tuesday night live from a local Buffalo Wild Wings, I could make that happen.
Absolutely.
But I digress. Nonetheless, though, so yeah, again with this change, and again, that's why we're recording now as novices. Just ready to record as of now. Is simply because of the fact that this news is just so big that we had to get something on record now. All of those things are on the table, and
Right.
all of those changes are more than possible, or none of those changes could happen. Anything could happen right now. This is what I would say a great time to be a fan. It's very interesting to keep an eye on, but it does leave a little bit of unsettling thoughts for some of us long-term fans who
Absolutely.
just don't know what's going to happen, and we're kind of used to knowing what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And if anything, it kind of makes you hope for the best, but you're also trying to prepare yourself for the worst.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, we're hoping that the Vince McMahon is that is kind of in these deals right now isn't the Vince McMahon that we've seen put out there in TV land. Hopefully he is thinking about the fan first, and it is, fan centric, and he's looking out for the best interest of his company along with the talent and hopefully us fans. But it's Vince McMahon. He don't owe us a damn thing.
Nope, absolutely not. I mean, he gave us, at least me personally, he's gave me over 35 years worth of entertainment. So, I mean, I got what I paid for. So
Right.
One way or another, whatever changes will happen, I'll be honest, I'll still be a fan. I'll be following. So, yeah, no matter how far south it goes, no matter where it may sell, I'll keep watching. And I can't think of a scenario where I won't continue watching. But, I mean, I get, what do they say? Never say never. I guess that scenario happens, but I don't see it likely. And then, of course, with this new podcast adventure here that we're looking into, I definitely don't see it being a possibility right now because
Nope.
I'm looking forward to this going on for quite a while in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so we are kind of nearing our time here. So in regards to this is our first podcast, hopefully you guys are listening with a kind heart. But hey, we're wrestling fans. We're entitled to opinions. So if somehow this gets out to social media some way, there's a way to kick back at us some feedback. We're always open to feedback. But then again, this is the Bookers Alliance. We carry the pencil. We don't have to take the feedback, only if we want to.
And with the pencil comes the power. So as long as this is our podcast, that power lies right here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Have a good evening, and we bid you adieu.
Peace.